everyone. Floyd Kephart of City Development LLC, whose organization has still the ENA for Coliseum City, has said that the details regarding the proposal that he submitted to the City of Oakland, the County of Alameda, and the Oakland-Alameda County Joint Powers Authority were largely confidential. But he did sit down with a columnist with the San Diego Union Tribune by the name of McSwain and gave a fair amount of detail that hasn't appeared in any other publication, Here, let me read it to you because I just happened to locate it. First of all, the news for me is that his Coliseum City proposal, for all practical purposes, hasn't changed. The stadium that he says Mark Davis wants is at 55,000 seats still. It's still at $900 million, and there's still that $400 million funding gap that he claims someone is going to have to fill. Now, do I still think the financing overall is fishy? Yes, I do, but let me put that aside for a moment, and I do because of that whole conduit bond issue. Let me put that aside for one moment and just report the news. Basically, the Raiders, he says, have offered $500 million toward a $900 million stadium, and the mix is $100 million from the team, $200 million from an NFL loan against future ticket sales, and $200 million from sale of seat licenses to fans. Now, remember if you happen to read my post on the Kephart financing plan, he didn't note that the NFL G4 loan was at $250 million now. So that error is still there. He's basically just cut himself off of $50 million, okay? But I'll continue. Then it says that the Rancho Santa Fe businessman who advises private equity and hedge funds for a living estimates that by owning the stadium, the Raiders would yield $7.5 million a year in tax benefits, $287 million over 37 years to help offset maintenance and upgrade costs. And the team would keep any other event revenues. And now, he also says that his group, City Development LLC, will purchase 100 acres of the present OCO Coliseum site's 120 acres at the appraised market value, probably less than $100 million to $150 million, from Oakland and Alameda County, which jointly own the site at present. Then he says that Kephart says he has a private equity backer, which he hasn't disclosed, but I know some friends who know who that equity backer is, and I'll reveal that in another transmission. At any rate, they would spend an estimated $3.2 billion over 10 years to build 3,500 residences. That's apartments, condos, and low-income units, 380,000 square feet of retail space, and 750,000 square feet of office space, and 2 hotels at 550 total rooms. When you think about what I just told you, it means one thing, that the original Coliseum City was not paid attention to, and this is more closer to the 800-acre monstrosity that Kephart claimed existed, but Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf and Oakland Council member and Council President Lynette Gibson McElhaney claimed wasn't even on the table anymore. That's not the case. This is still on the table. This is still that city within the city of Oakland that protesters have shown up to complain about. It's still right there on the table. Nothing has changed. Then it goes on that this is what McSwain writes. He says, there's a potential public appeal on several levels. For openers, it might spark a turnaround for the high crime neighborhoods around the Coliseum and provide 5,000 jobs. It checks the green mobility box with direct rail access to Oakland International Airport and via Amtrak to Sacramento. And he's referring to the Amtrak station, the BART station that we're all familiar with already. Remember, this guy's from San Diego. Now, he goes on about that, okay? Then Kephart apparently explains to him that the risk to the public would appear to be limited. Kephart says that his group would backstop the tax revenue promised from his side of the deal, with one caveat. His estimates show sufficient revenues to support $400 million for a stadium, but the city experts may end up projecting a gap as high as $100 million that would have to be resolved somehow in negotiations. And now he continues here to get the public off the hook, Gephart's plan would use a financing mechanism that can legally tax activities inside an infrastructure district as long as the property owners vote for it. That's called Mello-Roos district financing. Keep that in mind, okay? That's what that's called. In this case, it would include the city, the county, and the Gephart's group as the property owners, primarily. And he says he's proposed to help the city buy out the county, which has been reluctant to participate. And he says there's no public debt involved here, and there's no funds coming from the existing general fund. He said that's as close as you can come to having no new taxes or public money. But he's playing with words here that he doesn't quite understand, and he's not really that familiar with this. When you propose Mello-Roos financing, as of last year, it can go to a public vote. And I say that because anyone who tells you that I'm wrong is nuts, because they don't follow legislative changes like I do. Comic-Con in San Diego has long asked for and lobbied for and worked toward an expansion of the San Diego Convention Center. The city of San Diego, working with the hoteliers and Comic-Con International 2 years ago, came up with what on paper appeared to be a brilliant financing plan. It was challenged by a local business person, and winning the first court challenge in 2013, that win was overturned by the appellate court last year, and now that would have to go to a public vote if they went ahead with the Mello-Roos financing approach at all. And that's one reason why Mayor Kevin Faulconer didn't go ahead with that approach, because he knew that was going to push him to a type of public vote that he wouldn't want because of the connotation that you're adding this new tax in the case of San Diego Football Stadium, and that's a sure kiss of death at the polls. Okay, that's why he opted for a simple general fund grab. This would call for a public vote. There's no way to escape that. And because this is part of the overall plan, you would have to take the overall plan and push it to a public vote, because this tax district, which is mentioned now twice, is part of a public plan. But the bottom line, folks, is that they've been marching along forward with the same Coliseum City proposal all along. It hasn't changed. It wasn't downsized at all. It still exists. That's the sad truth.